I'm not
We'll
worried.
see. Oh, all right. We're ready. Thanks for joining me, Jeremy. This is exciting, by the way. This is a pretty exciting interview.
Is it? Is it cool? I mean,
Yeah.
no, I'm excited. I'm excited, but
Well, yeah, I appreciate you being here because I'm excited for you to introduce yourself and what you do because you're part of the 3D team that's worked on a lot of high profile movies, right?
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
So
Lots of
yeah, tell us.
blockbusters. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us your background. Tell us like what you're doing.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so like you've said, I have a massive background in 3D films, right? In 3D films, we put on the glasses and stuff's coming at you, going into the screen, all that. And, I kind of stumbled upon it. This was, for me, I started this back in 2002, right? So a long time ago. And at
Yeah.
that point, I was just like doing ride films, so for the theme parks, right?
Okay.
And then also IMAX films, right? So if like you go to a museum, right? There's like a lot of times there's an IMAX theater there, and there's 3D documentaries, like 40-minute movies, right? And so
Yeah.
that was the bread and butter, early 2000s. And then, this little movie comes along with like these blue aliens. I don't know if you heard of it. It's called Avatar. And, but I
Wow,
didn't
man.
work on Avatar, but Avatar changed the landscape for me and really changed things quite a bit. And it's because James Cameron, also I believe Jeffrey Katzenberg over at DreamWorks, and a team of people helped get digital projectors out into the world, right? And so before that point, a lot of theaters were still using film, right? And they were projecting, and they had film projectors. And this is why back in like the 80s and the 50s, these other times when 3D movies came out, they were hard to watch. They're painful. They hurt. It's because their cameras didn't sync up well. The display wasn't well. And it hurts your brain, right? And so because they did that, now you can, with these digital projectors, the technology was there to produce quality 3D films that don't produce a pain, right?
Wow.
I, I know that if anybody tells me that 3D movies hurt their brain, I know that they actually have an eye problem and need to go to the optometrist because it's not the technology. But I mean, listen, it's absolutely possible to have a bad product, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
chances are like it's time to go to the eye doctor because like there's something happening with your eyes there. And I don't know, like it's true because with the way
Right.
the 3D works is it's sending two different images to your brain. Like when you look on screen and you see a doubled image, what those
Yeah.
glasses are doing is they're sending an image to your right eye and an image to your left eye. And then your brain puts it together, and then there's this illusion of it having spatial
Oh,
depth, right? And so,
yeah.
like, literally, like, there's something going on with their eyes. Like, one eye is weaker than the other, or something's happening, right? Um,
Interesting. That's
yeah,
interesting though. I know what you're saying because they made these 3D these glasses where you could walk around at Christmas time and like the Christmas lights would be 3D or
yep,
whatever,
yep, yeah,
whatever
yeah,
shape or whatever. And
yeah.
yeah, my daughter has some eye problems and she like couldn't
Mm-hmm.
wear them. So that's a good
Yeah, she's like,
point.
this is not comfortable. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which because it's like it's all happening in the brain and through your eyeballs. But
Okay, that's
anyways,
cool. Yeah, okay.
side story off there. Avatar comes out, and my value and the interest in what I do explodes almost overnight, right? Because now every studio, everybody wants to make 3D movies because Avatar was a hit.
Yeah.
And they want to get on this on the in the same game. And so I started consulting a lot, and working with people, with different studios and movies, and helping them get their 3D product on. And one particular consulting job landed me a position at this global company as global creative director, right? And we built this company from 50 people in LA to 3,500 people worldwide, in like 18 months. It was
Wow.
bananas, right? And we built
Holy
up,
cow.
it was LA, Vancouver, London, and Mumbai. And it like just became, really, it was like a dream job, right? I was doing all this
Yeah.
cool stuff, right? Like the quote unquote dream job, flying around the world first class, being paid well, hanging out with George Lucas and Christopher Nolan, and going to the set of Harry Potter, like all this
Whoa.
really cool stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's kind of
Holy cow.
where the 3D stuff exploded and went, And I still do a lot of 3D. I did last
Yeah.
year, I did Dune. I produced Dune and Godzilla vs. Kong, and
Oh,
I
wow.
consult for Paramount Animation. So last year a movie called Rumble came out, and I'm working with them on another film, and so
Yeah.
it's still ongoing. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, this is what got me, like, I haven't gone to see a 3D movie in a while. Are they, like, in select theaters or something? Or is it like
No, yeah.
or is it like, because you said, like, put on the glasses, right? So I'm like, but I remember seeing, like, some of those effects, like, in the Avengers. Like, what was that
Hmm.
one of the last Avengers movies where, like, Thanos, like, there was, like, rocks flying, and we didn't have the glasses on, but we got, like, there was still some kind of, like, effect where it almost looked like it should have been 3D.
Yeah. Well, here's the trick. So there's a couple of them. There's a couple of answers in there, right? The first thing
Okay.
is what determines a good 3D movie is a good 2D movie, right? And
Okay.
so if you have a really quality 2D movie that has these moments in the 2D film, they're all 3D is only going to enhance it, right? So if you have
Right.
if a film that has this depth that it feels like the debris is coming at you and like you're immersed and you're in the screen, and it's going to be
Yeah.
that much better in 3D. If it's really flat and stale and empty, it's going to be even more flat, stale, and empty in 3D, right? But that's a
Yeah.
storytelling tool. You can use that. There's times when a filmmaker wants you to feel claustrophobic, and there's times where they want you to feel alone, right? Um,
Yeah.
but going back to the original question, North America is not a big fan of 3D, right? And
Okay.
so they don't push it real hard in North America. It almost became cool to not like it, right? Oh, I'm not a 3D movie, right? And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? This is
Yeah, no,
amazing. I
I
put on
would
the
I love them.
glasses. This is so much fun, right? I just love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, there's some movies that they only come out in Asia, only come out in China. They're made for South America. Like there's basically you start talking about territories, which then also will dictate like how much money they have to invest in the 3D deliverable, right? The 3D
Okay.
product that goes out.
Yeah.
Um, but they're almost all, big blockbusters are in 3D, especially all the action films.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. No, because I remember seeing that, and I remember thinking in the Avengers, I'd be like, this would be cool with some 3D glasses.
Yeah.
Like, that would be
Every
pretty
Marvel film is in 3D, right? Every Marvel
okay.
film. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you just have to find the right, like, theater that has it in 3D, I
You got to
guess,
buy the
to
right
wear the
ticket.
glasses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta buy the right ticket. Yeah.
That's so
It's a reason
awesome.
why some of these movies make so much money, right? Especially the
Yeah.
Marvel films that sell out so hard. People, I believe that some of these billion-dollar movies that have made $1 billion in the box office, I
Yeah.
know they wouldn't have made $1 billion if they didn't have 3D because 3D costs more. And then
Right.
what's end up happening, especially in North America, like I talked about, it's not as many people want to see 3D in North America. And so, but all the 2D screens will sell out. So then the 3D screens also have to sell out, right? And so then
Oh,
people are
yeah.
paying more money to see it in 3D, right?
Right, right. No, that's super interesting. So that's what you've been doing for quite a while now, right? Like, as a 3D executive producer for 3D, right? You've been doing that for a long time.
Hmm.
But we talked about before the call, you branching out into a topic that I think is great. And I've had somebody on the show before. I talked to um, an entrepreneur named Annie Schiffman, and she talked about this same kind of idea, and really brought to light a new idea for me. When you talk about all business is show business, and showing up like it's opening night, like, it's like
Hmm.
box office night, right? So talk to me, and you've kind of branched out into teaching entrepreneurs this kind of principle. So why don't you dive a little more into that and what that means, and how we can,
Hmm.
as entrepreneurs, treat our business like show business?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it was kind of like this epiphany towards the back half of last year, right?
Okay.
And I have done. Like, I'm a big fan of going on podcasts and shows and talking to people, right? When I
Yeah.
was global creative director and we did this big expansion, it got to this point where I was slowing down a little bit, and I I wasn't feeling the fulfillment there. Like something was missing, right? Like I
Yeah.
had um something was off. And so I actually left and bought a business, right? And I kind of walked away from this
Ooh,
dream job and bought a print and marketing business. And I had
wow.
no idea what I didn't know, right? Like I was full of confidence, right? I was
Yeah.
full of confidence. We built from 50 people in LA, 3,500 people worldwide. I could turn around this print and marketing business. It was in the neighborhood. I wasn't going to have to be on a long commute. I wasn't going to have to fly around the world all the time. And so I did that, but it was a challenge, right? There's a whole long story that I won't get into, but essentially, I didn't
Yeah.
know what I didn't know. A year into it, and the credit cards are full, the savings are gone. I don't know how we're gonna pay rent. I borrowed money from the family, borrowed money from the bank. Like, it was really painful, and it was listening to podcasts and then getting some coaching, going to masterminds, and that whole thing that really helped me truncate time, right? Because it was all about like this trial and error. Like, I would hit these like trial and error loops and cycles that would just take up all my time and my money, and it was really painful, right? And so I got out of
Yeah.
that. So now, like, I really like to go on the podcast and to share this stuff, because I felt like a lot of this stuff should be common knowledge. Like, you shouldn't have to, people should just know this stuff, but a lot of times people just aren't taught it, right? It's not like this basic idea of knowledge, right? And
Sure.
so I was doing a lot of podcasts last year, and then it was like, you know what? This is kind of like movie marketing, right? Like, we can model this when when a movie comes out, right? We start to see, of course, there's like a teaser clip, a little video comes out, and then you've got the trailer that comes out, the long commercial of the movie, and
Yeah.
then right, there's billboards and things like that. But right before the movie comes out, right, like the 2 weeks right before, when like the real marketing, it's just like really humming, what do you start to see? You start to see the talent showing up on late night shows, right? And on the morning
Oh, yeah.
shows and the daytime shows, right? They're doing interviews, they're making appearances, they go on press junkets, right? They end up
Yeah.
in magazine interview articles and newspapers, right? And then it's like, oh, yeah, of course, this is like podcasts and YouTube channels and blogs and social media posts, right? And so media
Yeah.
has been decentralized in a way that there's media platforms everywhere, right? I don't have to go on Jimmy Fallon. I can
Right.
go on your show, right? I'm here right
Yeah.
now. I'm talking to you, right? And
Heck yeah.
and what
Thank you.
right? Exactly, right? You're Jimmy Fallon, man. Come on.
That's so funny. That's so awesome. But yes,
But
I
it's
understand. Yeah.
right. And so it's in, because when we're in business, it's, we need an audience, we need a following, we got to create a list, we have to, everybody's about have a podcast, like, make sure you're on social media, go live, build your audience, all this, all that. But we don't have that in the beginning, right? And we don't always
Yeah.
have that, and sometimes we don't have the interest to want to do that, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so then what do we do? And then maybe we don't have a lot of money to like just spend on advertising, right? And Facebook ads and YouTube ads and all this stuff. We might be short on money, especially in the beginning, right? And so
Yeah.
what can
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
We can go into other people's platforms, just like the movies, right? And we can
Right.
we can tell our stories, and we're now, searchable on the internet, because if you put in my name, I've been on all these podcasts, right? We're findable. People
Yeah.
can find us because of this. But more
That's
importantly,
yeah.
right? More importantly, when we're talking, we become relatable. People get to know us, right? And then people can connect with us. And then we can take those pieces and these clips, and we can chop them up, and that can be our social media content, right? We can put like little quote
Yeah.
cards and audio clips and video clips, and we can do these things. So when people look us up, we are now somebody in our industry who is who's out there talking and providing value, and we become valuable in our own industries, right? It's kind of a lot
Right.
in there, but that's the idea.
No, but I like what you're saying, because that was kind of the thesis for my podcast, and why I think we had a lot of fun in our pre-call talking about what people can do to kind of elevate their brands and things like that. And then personally, as you were talking, it reminded me of just owning like your name on Google, right?
Hmm.
Um, and you mentioned like going on a lot of podcasts can do that, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, because sometimes I Google my name, and I also share a name with a really famous like college wrestler,
Okay.
and so it's funny, me and him are battling, and I think he knows I'm coming for him. I'm trying to come for him too, because he keeps like putting some new stuff out, and I'm like,
Be
damn you.
careful. He's going to challenge you to the mat. He's like, come on.
Yeah, I know. but it's fun, and so I like that idea though. of you painting the picture of this is like your own kind of like media tour or something,
Yeah.
and always booking out and going on these things. So that's ultimately like what your mastermind and what your course now is about.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I started a master class for this. Like
Yeah,
I
okay,
said, it kind
that's
of
right.
dawned on me late last year, and I did some test runs in early December, and then I was like, "Wait a minute, I got this! I got this! This I can see it. It's like a master class. It's like 3 hours." And so in between Christmas and New Year's, I'm like, "I got to test this. I got to try this. I want to go into next year if this is working and really get this out there." And
Yeah,
so, I reached out to people in like some different groups that I'm in. I'm like, "Hey, come check this out. I want to do this. Tell me what you think. I'm going to give you all this value. You don't have to pay me. Like, it just is. This is my beta group, right?"
yeah,
And the response was really good. And so now, I'm trying to do it on a regular cadence, at least once a month, maybe twice a month. Like the next one is February 17th, and just this opportunity for people to learn this strategy and to implement it, right? I like the idea of a
yeah.
master class because people are actually going to do something. This isn't just, hey, here's some knowledge and like maybe
Right.
you'll use it, right? Like I really want people to take this opportunity and run with it and be successful.
Yeah, I think that's great. And the more that people can like start building traction, I think this is a great tool for like when you start out in a small business, and you've kind of got to rely on like these guerrilla forms of marketing, right? Like this
Mhm.
guerrilla marketing where it's like,
Yeah.
look, I can't really pay for like Google and all these things, but I can, because I think this is funny. I think that a lot of people, especially when you're starting out, like starting your own business, they get really like they get in their head about like I don't have time or like all these things.
Mm.
And I learned as a salesperson that you do have a lot of time. You just spend it doing things that you try to be busy, and you think that busy
Mhm.
means productive, right? People think that sometimes. And
Mhm.
I think this is fun because you can go on a lot of I mean, like, what are you doing during the day? Like, I mean, right now, we have time to
And it
spend
doesn't
30 or
take that
40
much
minutes.
time. Yeah.
Right,
I
right,
mean,
right,
it's a
right, right.
lunch break. It's an errand. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah,
it
and this
doesn't
is
take a
part of
lot,
your
right?
yeah,
Yeah, imagine if you did it twice a month, right? Once every other week on average, right? That's two
yeah,
hours a month. You're getting your name out there. You're creating content for your social media. So when people look you up, they see that you're
yeah,
a spokesperson and you're out there. Like your value increases.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that that is part, your value increases, but also like your bandwidth and your experience, because people start to, well, like you mentioned earlier when we were talking just now, as you listen to podcasts, as you go on different podcasts, everybody does it a little different. And what I love about
Mhm.
podcasting for me is like I don't make a lot of money from my podcast directly, but
Mhm.
what I do experience is a ton of networking. And if you do this
Mhm.
right, that's what podcasting and a lot of this is like learning, networking, getting your name out there, finding opportunities that wouldn't have come about if you didn't jump on a podcast, right?
Yeah,
Or a
absolutely.
YouTube channel or a blog, or yeah, because you can like guest blog. There's a lot of ways, right? So what are some of the ways that you talk about? Or like do you focus on a main one?
In terms of topic or strategy going in,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, let's strategy first, but then I'm curious about the topics. Yeah.
yeah. So strategy, it's getting on in something you kind of touched on. Also, it's like you're doing your reps in terms of getting out there and speaking, right? So you're honing in your message, and
Yeah.
we, especially when we're starting out, we've got these big ideas and we think it's going to be so great, but we don't actually know until we put it out there, right? We
Oh,
don't
right,
know.
right.
And so you get that feedback, right? You get it from the host, you get it from questions. But what I like, because is the partnership aspect of it, right? So the networking and meeting with the host, because we
Right.
have, you know, there's similar things that we do in our businesses, right? And so you and I might be talking afterwards and say, hey, we can partner up and do this, or we can do this, or I know somebody that you should talk to because of what you're doing in this. And that
Yeah.
instant bond and connection happens so quick to somebody like yourself who's talking to people all the time, right?
Yeah,
And then if I'm
right.
doing it, I'm talking to people all the time. And so the networking
Yeah.
is awesome. But I love it. Like when you talk about strategy, for me, it's partnerships. I want to, here's a good example. I use lately, and I think it's because the Super Bowl's coming up, right? We got the Super Bowl coming up. It's here in LA, and it's in the SoFi Stadium. And I try to get people to understand it like this. Imagine
Yeah.
if you can fill SoFi Stadium with 70,000 of your ideal customers. And at halftime, instead of Dr. Dre, Snoop, and Eminem and these guys coming on stage, it was you. And you were able to speak to the audience and connect with them and tell your story and offer your product or service, right? And there's like two responses I'll get. It'll be, that sounds amazing. I wish I could do that, but I don't have that many millions to be able to talk to that people. Like, they're going to want me to pay them a lot of money. Or the other people are just like, are you kidding me? I will never speak in front of that many people. Like, I'll be shaking in my boots, right? But really, it's the same idea, right? How many podcasts do I need to go on, or YouTube shows, or any of this to speak in front of 70,000 of my ideal customers? That's only 10 shows with 7,000 people, right? 10 shows with 7,000 people. You could do that in a month.
Yeah, right? You could do that in a month. Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't cost you anything. You can speak for free. The show wants value, right?
Right.
The show wants to provide value to the listeners. That's number one, right? And that's the big part. And then number two, you can say, hey, Mr. SoFi Stadium or Mrs. SoFi Stadium, if you let me speak in front of your customers, I'll give you 50% of any money I make. I'll give you 25%. You just make a deal, right? Like, if it's that type of show, right? I know people that charge, $10,000 to be on their YouTube show, right? Just to be on it. Yeah. But if you have a good product, if you have something that's selling, they'll take an affiliate deal instead, because they'll make way more than $10,000.
Yeah, that's true, huh?
Right. So I think partnerships are key.
I think, well, and you talk about, like, I like that you mentioned just getting like really creative with the ways that you approach your business. I mean, that's ultimately like what I like, and what I like talking about is finding the ways, because a lot of us who start out, and it's funny, like, whether you buy a new business or you're starting a new business, like, a lot of us can't drop whatever 20 or 30 grand on advertising or whatever. Some of these big companies, like, that's their marketing budget, like, a month, right? Like 20, 30 grand, you know what I'm saying? And so for small business owners, it's not about money now, and I was just thinking about this, like, say you'd spend 30 grand to do marketing, but you won't spend like 3 or 4 hours a week going on podcasts or going on blogs.
Right.
That's
right.
A good point, man. It's hard to argue with that, dude.
Not that advertising doesn't work, but you also have to go through the learning curve, right? You may have 30 grand. It might take you 25 just to find a message that works.
That's true, isn't it? Yeah. There's a lot of A/B testing that goes into marketing.
Yeah. I've dumped a bunch of money into the Facebook advertising hole not to see anything come out the other side.
Really? Holy cow. Yeah. Well, Facebook's funky like that. I think that social media, kind of that marketing strategy, I think some of it works, but I'll tell you, like, I can't remember. I mean, it probably happened like 3 or 4 times in my whole time on Facebook where I saw a Facebook ad and bought something from a Facebook ad.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm like, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's similar for everybody, but I don't see an ad and immediately click on it and buy it. I just kind of, and especially if it's on my freaking Facebook videos, man. If you interrupt my Facebook video with an ad, I get I'm mad. That makes me mad. That's why I subscribe to YouTube Premium.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's $11 a month. That's the best $11 you can spend.
You get that time back, right?
Yeah.
You get the time of having to wait until you could skip the ad, right? So for $11, how much time are you getting back? Not just sitting staring at some ad.
But you know what's funny? I love that we're talking about this, because what's great about this, to your point, is like, I'll pay for YouTube Premium, but I will go listen to a podcast. I'll make sure that I listen to the podcast the whole time, right? I'll skip through a 30-second ad, but I'll watch a 2-hour podcast with somebody who I think is interesting on a show that I love, and that to me builds more credibility than a 30 or 90-second ad on YouTube or Facebook.
Yeah. And ads are hard, man. You have to be like, it's the balance of being, because you got to hook them in and you got to be catchy, but then are you going to be gimmicky or salesy? And like, how do you connect? And I think people are already, it's an ad, so their defenses are up. Oh, you want to sell me
Sure.
something, right?
Yeah.
You want to sell me
Sure.
something.
Yeah.
When this other way, we're just, you start partnering with people and figuring it out. And I mean, look at Apple, right? When did
Yeah.
like Apple
Yeah.
really changed with the App Store, right? And what is
Yeah.
that? The App Store is partnering with people who don't work for Apple. You can sell your product in their store and get the majority of the money.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's the same thing
Yeah.
with
That's
Amazon,
true. Yeah. That's
right?
true, huh?
You can
Yeah.
sell your stuff here in my store, one of the largest search engines on the planet, and you can put your stuff in it and make
Yeah.
money, you know?
Well, and what's cool about that is, yeah, I mean, you talk about like Amazon and Apple. I know that Apple just went through some kind of stuff, but you're right though. It's a good point because anybody else would want like maybe even like a majority stake. Like you look at like Shark Tank, right? Like that
Mhm.
show, you partner up with the right shark because of the opportunities most of the time. Like most of the time, it's
Yeah.
not about the deal; it's about who you're partnering up with, and they're going to take a part of your business. And so I like how you put that. Like you can go out on these shows and not give up equity in a company that you bought or created.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a great
Yeah.
point. So how did this all click for you? Like tell us your journey and how all of this started to click for you. I know you mentioned earlier that it was part of you buying a business. Is that where this started or did it start before that?
I've always kind of just had this entrepreneurial itch inside and always want to like
Yeah.
create something and do something. And so, yeah, buying the business was part of that. That struggle was so real. And when I came out of it, and like I said, there were so many things I felt I should have known, right? And I was like, I could help
Like what?
people, right?
Like what do you mean? Like what do you think was what do you think like some of the most important things you didn't know
That's
but you
yeah.
thought, "Wow, I should have known that."
Yeah, so the three people will ask me like, "What was the number one thing you learned from that experience?" Right? And so I have got 3 things that I tell people. And the first one is your market. It's just really
Okay.
understanding your market and to the point where you're fully clear that nothing is about you, right?
Right.
And it's all in service of your market, all in service of the customer within that market. And if you don't understand who you're selling to and how everybody else is selling to them, like how it takes place in that market, right? Like we talk about,
Yeah.
how you can model your competitors, right? And how you can see, I don't have to spend $30,000 on to figure out my marketing strategy because I can go to my competitor who's already done that and I can look to see how they are talking to the customers. What
Yeah. Yeah.
emotions are they tugging on to sell a similar product, right? There's so many
Right.
things
Right.
that you can get out of it. And so when I bought that business, I was buying a print and marketing business. I was full blown film industry for 2 decades. It was like
Right.
I had no idea what I was getting into. So that was a big mistake I made. And once I understood that, things started to change. And then
Okay.
it's modeling success is the next one. I kept trying to figure everything out on my own. Right. I kept thinking, oh, I got to do this. I got to figure out. And like I'm reinventing the wheel. When in
Yeah.
all actuality, it's all been done before, right? Like the
Yeah, that's a good
foundation
point.
of everything, right, is all the same. The foundation to
Yeah.
selling solar panels and the foundation to selling movies. I bet we go all the way down to the bottom, and it's going to be the same, right? And then,
Absolutely.
right,
Absolutely.
and then another one that we hear a lot, but it's so true, is just taking imperfect action, right? You gotta
Yes.
move and go, and you can't sit there and overthink and over design and spend all your time trying to come up with this perfect plan because, like we said earlier, until you get out into the public and start bouncing it off people, you actually don't know if it's going to work or not, and it's going to
Right.
change no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
you get
great
that
point.
feedback, right? And like you go
Yeah.
out there, and that's when the real education starts, right? When you're doing it, right? And the refining
Yeah.
and figuring it out. And so coming out of that business, there's like, I got to share. Well, one, I got to pay back all the money I borrowed and dig myself out of this hole. So,
Right.
it was like multiple streams of revenue was something I focus on, is making sure not all my eggs aren't in one basket. And you know, trying to figure out this life of freedom. Like, how do I have freedom and success? That's another big one for me is,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I didn't give up, the 40-hour work week. I wasn't really, I was working way more than 40 hours, but the idea of the 40-hour
Sure.
work week for like the 100-hour work week working for myself and not having any time, right? Which is a lot
Yeah.
what we do. And you said this earlier, and I'm just going to say it a different way, is when we get into our businesses as entrepreneurs and business owners, we give
Yeah.
ourselves jobs, right? We give ourselves a
Oh yeah.
job because that's what we're used to, right? But now we're just doing busy work, and we're just like, if we're feeling busy, we're feeling successful, which is
Right.
baloney, right? Like, we need to be
Yeah.
focusing on revenue, and the best path to revenue is focusing on your customer, right? And having a
Yeah.
customer centric business and providing value, right? And we focus on value, focus on the value we're putting out there, and then the revenue will come.
Yeah.
There's so many
I
things.
like
Like, I don't know, I'm just like flowing here, you know?
No, that's great. I mean, it's all you right now, man. But I really like that. The third thing that you mentioned, well, it's so crazy. I'm on this rabbit hole of like one of the things I want to explore this year is acquisition entrepreneurship, which is just buying small businesses and kind of using that as an investment vehicle. And
Mhm.
what you mentioned, like marketing is the big one. Like that's always the big one, is like you're fighting obscurity. How do I get out of obscurity? And then the
Mhm.
last one that you mentioned though is one that's near and dear, because this kind of the point of this podcast is done is better than perfect,
Oh,
which is what
yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
essentially what you said, right? Which is like, dude, just like stop, get out of analysis paralysis, stop
Mhm.
fearing failure, stop all of this stuff, because eventually, like, you're gonna have to change it either way. I heard a quote that was like, if your product is perfect, you launch too late, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
mean, just iterate through it and get it done and stop. You know what I mean? Like, what if
Yeah.
somebody doesn't like it? Well, like if you're worried about that, then
But
what are
guess
you
what?
doing in general?
Somebody's not gonna like it. Like, I promise you, somebody's not gonna like it. There's like, this world has no shortage of people not liking things. They're not gonna like it, you know? But that's okay.
Oh yeah,
But that is
yeah,
okay, right?
yeah,
There's enough of us. There's enough to go around. There's enough for all of us to have enough. There'll be more than enough left over. Like, it's fine. And that's also part of it, is
yeah,
weeding it out. The ones that you want to you want to know who isn't a good fit for you as well, right? And so if they
yeah,
don't like you, it's not going to be a good relationship anyway. So just be thankful
yeah.
that you figured it out, or they figured it out for you and moved on.
Right.
And that's
Good
all good.
point.
But you have to start. You have to go, and you have to take action. This mastermind, like, from idea to actually putting it on and hosting the first, not mastermind, masterclass,
Yeah,
it was probably 2 weeks. I just threw together a page, started talking to people, and said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. Check it out." I mean, when I talk about a landing page, it was like a headline, like a sub headline, 3 sentences, some bullet points, and a button. It didn't even have a video. It's just,
yeah.
I think I made a picture real quick of, just like, made a poster and stuck it into a computer monitor and put that on there real quick, and that
Why
was it.
not though? That's
And it was just,
great.
yeah, and it was me talking to people, selling it, and saying, "Hey, I'm doing this. Come on." And you could do
Yeah,
things like, also, if you're worried about it, because of course we're going to worry because we care, right? But when
sure.
you put out your product or service, you can do it for not for free the first time, but do it for feedback, right? Just get out
Yeah,
there and do it for feedback, and it takes some of the pressure off, because I
right.
think it's important at every stage, but in the beginning, more importantly, to disconnect yourself from the sale and disconnect yourself from the money, and just
Sure.
focus on delivering value. And if you say, "Hey," and this is what I
Right.
did, "Hey, I want to do this master class. Before I put it out to the world, I want to share it with you, and all I'm asking in return is that for you to give me feedback. So either if it's a critique to make it better, tell me, and then if it's great, I want a testimonial, because
Right.
testimonials will sell that stuff better than you, right? And
Oh
then you just
yeah,
start
yeah.
start building the testimonials. Give discounts for testimonials. Like, testimonials are the key.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. I love that. I'm just, my mind is expanding because it's so true. Like when I was starting my yeah, just my sales training and things like that. Like at the beginning, it was like very discounted or free. And I went back to all of those people and did that, right? I was like, so what did you like? What did you not like? All you have to do if I do this for you is take this survey. And it was
Hmm.
that, right? It was feedback, because you're right. Social proof sells better. Like that's what you need in the beginning. You need
Yeah.
people to like, you need testimonials, you need people who enjoy it, you need to find people who are going to like in your target market who can speak to these things and uncover some objections and things like that. Um, because it's true. But back to your point, what can you do a lot of market research? You can go be on a lot of podcasts. You can go be on a lot of blogs.
Yeah.
You can go
Yeah.
network with people, right?
Yeah. You'll know if you have a good idea if it's easy to book a show, right? If they're like,
That's
"Yes,
true.
I want to talk about that," right?
Yes.
And I because when I first started talking to people about this idea, I actually
Yeah.
had 5 topics. Like, so I reach out to people and say, "Hey, I've got 5 things I can talk on. Here's a list of them." But everybody just kept picking this one. They kept picking this one, this
Yeah.
idea. And so I just got rid of it. I don't even talk about the other ones. I can't, I'd have to go back to an email to remember what they all were. Um, but yeah, and it's doing it's doing the reps on your message. It's getting out there. It's saying what you got to say and getting better and getting more comfortable and getting confident. And at the same time, you're getting content and you're becoming searchable and findable and relatable. Like all
Yes.
these positive things start happening. You're networking. You're making partnerships. It's all good.
Right, absolutely. And that's another great thing. Like people, get all the time like, well, how do I make, where do I come up with content for like TikTok videos or Instagram reels? And look, I'm not a master at this, but because I just don't, I mean, I do video and I do these podcasts, but I'm not really a big fan of like Instagram or TikTok. But if you are, and I think you should be, because TikTok is the Wild West right now. It's
Hmm.
what it's what Facebook and Instagram were 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever. Um, maybe not 15, I don't know how old they are, but a while ago, like
Yeah.
it was easy, right? Though it
Yeah.
was easy to
Yeah.
like go on Facebook and build, or like LinkedIn. Like a
Yeah.
couple of
Yeah.
years ago, it was easy to go grow on LinkedIn, and now they're all kind of
Hmm.
like, what is that? They've got all their algorithms and everything's all algorithmed out,
Hmm.
but TikTok is not. And
Yeah.
so to your point, yeah, like creator, like if you come on my show, you can have the audio, the video, and all the raw, and you can just do
Yeah.
whatever you want with it.
Puts your show out there as well, right? You
Yeah,
can say, "Yeah, use
yeah,
it all you want.
exactly.
Just throw my hashtag on there for me."
Right, yeah,
Uh, yeah.
just tell them where this interview is done. Yeah, why
'Cause,
wouldn't you want
I've
that? I love that.
yeah, I've tried to, like, be consistent on social media and going live and talking and pictures and photos and videos, and, like, I just can't stick with it. Like, I'm busy and, I've got 2 young kids and a
Yeah,
business, but really at the end of the day, I don't have the desire, right? Like I don't have a desire to be this
right.
big social media influencer who's, posting all the time and concerned about followers and likes and comments and all this stuff. I just want people when they look me up to that what I'm talking about matches what I'm saying and that they could say,
Yes,
"Hey, here's this guy. Oh yeah, he does have the experience. He's talking to lots of people. Here's some, quotes that he said and so we could chop this up and use it."
yeah,
And now, doing a few interviews a month, I've got a month worth of content and I have somebody chop it up for me, post it, right? Like
yeah,
people are like, "Oh yeah, like, do you see this that I put on here on Instagram?" And I'm like, "No, sorry. I haven't looked on Instagram in like a month. But you have got posts all over the place." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I've got somebody
yeah, 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 yeah,
schedules those for me and puts it up there." And it's for me, it's more about being findable than people like follow. Like I don't want the vanity metrics, right? Like I
sure,
don't it's just and that's my particular business, right? I'm
yeah,
if you want to do business with me, you're either going to show up to this masterclass or we're going to have a phone call, right? We're going to talk and I'm going to provide you value somehow. And then we'll decide if we want to continue the relationship or not.
yeah. Well, it's a great way to do it. I think that I think social media is kind of slowly, and it's not all the way, but, and I might be wrong about this, but it feels to me like social media, at least like the big ones, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, they're more turning into like billboards, right? Where it's like
Mhm.
you're doing these things for branding so people can build trust, and like billboards are all for branding. Like like when I've talked to billboard specialists, because I've done that before.
Mhm.
Billboards, it's not a good idea to put like pricing on billboards usually, like because
Yeah.
it's just branding, right?
Mhm.
Um,
You want people to remember you. You want when somebody's
yeah,
ready to buy, you want to be top of mind, right?
right. And that's what like, and now that's what I think social media is kind of turning into, like hard to like convert a lot of sales from like organic social media and posting. But to your point, when they're ready, like they know who to go to.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are
And then
people
you're
out there
doing,
who are, yeah, they're really good at social media and they're live every day and they're
yeah,
super successful because of their efforts. But we have to understand that
yeah,
not, it's not a one size shoe fits all. We're all
yeah,
different. We all have different desires and the way we like to live. And just because it works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for another person.
yeah,
And
right,
that's why we look for, proven, tactics and strategies and things that we can use so that we can sample those quickly enough to truncate time, not get stuck in this trial and error loop, and find what works for us as quickly as possible.
yeah, absolutely. So what is your strategy? And when you talk about like helping people get on, more podcasts and things like that, what are some of the strategies that you do share, or is that part of? Well, I mean, obviously, it's part of your master class, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what are some of the things that you look for, tell people to look for in an ideal podcast, or like how do people find an ideal podcast for them?
Again, so what I do is
Yeah.
I look for where the hosts are congregated, just like our market. Like when we're looking for to sell our product to somebody, like if I sell pizzas, I'm going to go to where people eat pizza and do that,
Yeah.
right? So the same thing with hosts, I'm going to go to where the hosts are hanging out, right? And
Yeah.
there are Facebook groups and there's just groups in all the different platforms of where hosts and guests can congregate together, network and socialize, and almost speed date, especially right now because of so many people are working virtually. You like do this like speed dating session, right? And you start
Yeah.
reaching out to people that way instead of, because you can go to like Apple Podcasts, right? And just start searching in your niche and looking for that, and then going to the website and seeing if somebody has, a link to say, hey, if you want to be on my show, click this link, fill out this application. But that takes a long time. So where can I go spend the least amount of time to get the most amount of outcome, right? And so that's
Yeah.
what I do. So I look for groups of where everybody congregates, and then I just start mingling and talking and reaching out. If you're in a group, you can DM them and say, hey, we're in the group.
Yeah.
I saw your stuff. I saw your podcast. I like it. How
Yeah.
long have you been doing your show? Right? Oh, I've been doing my
Right.
show
Right.
this
Right.
long. That's awesome. I love your show. Well, this is what I'm doing, right? I mean, this might sound familiar, right? This is what I'm doing. And I'd love to
Yeah.
talk to you about doing it together and like being on your show, right? And
Yes. Yes.
that's
Yes.
how we connected. I think, right? Didn't I
Right.
like I reached out to
Yeah.
you, DM'd you, and I was like, hey, like, see
Yeah, I
what you're
think so.
doing. How's
Yeah.
it going? Yeah,
And it was just on Facebook.
yeah,
And that's the thing, is like people think like, oh, um, there's like rejection, or what if they don't, whatever. And you're gonna get that, I'm sure. But like most of the podcast hosts that I know, that I'm down with, we're pretty much down to interview whoever, as long as it fits our
right.
style. But pretty
So
much,
you got
like,
to
I don't really say no to
research.
people. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, but I
yeah, yeah,
really don't say no to people that often. Like,
yeah.
in fact, I've done like 200 interviews. I've talked to a bunch of people, and I think I've only said no like once or twice, and that was just
Hmm.
because it was just so far out of what I was doing, that it
Yeah,
was like, and not because of me, but because of them. Like their goals were like, I want to, do this thing, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I would love to interview you, but it's probably not the right,
yeah,
if you just want to
yeah,
spend
yeah,
time talking with me, you can. And then they were like, and then they said like, maybe I'll look around, which is fine. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't bother me. I don't
yeah.
care. I love bringing people on, having a good time, and opening people's minds, expanding them. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to know the niche. You got to do the research. You got to make sure it's a
Right.
good fit. And if I look at something and I'm not sure, I'm like, hey, look at this show. I'm not 100%. I reach out anyways
Yeah.
because it's like I don't know, so it's close enough, and then the person will tell you. I mean, there was a 1 week last month. I remember I reached out to 14 people in one day.
Oh,
Didn't take
wow.
long. Took me like an hour, and I did
Yeah.
this, and it two of them, maybe three, but definitely two responded and were like, "Thank you. This looks awesome. This is not a good fit for what we're doing in the show right now." Like,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing
Cool.
wrong with
Yeah.
that,
There's
right?
nothing. Yeah.
Like,
Nothing personal. It's all just like, this is what we're doing. And
yeah,
to your point earlier, it's good if you get that up front. You don't want to spend a lot of time preparing for the
right.
podcast and
Yeah,
going on
what is
there, and
going
then
on?
like,
And
and then like
weird.
there's nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's really
yeah,
cool. So, And I appreciate your time, by the way. I want to give
Yeah.
you some time right here as we wrap up to tell people where they can find your master class, how they can get involved, and what the process is like that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Well, it's so my website is goldenoctopillar.com. And
Okay.
if you can go there, and there's a link on there that'll go to the masterclass. You can go
Yeah.
to goldenoctopillar.com/movie marketing
Okay.
dash TTP, because I wanted to make a link just for this show. So if you're
Hey,
listening to
thank
this
you.
and you're interested in the masterclass, go to goldenoctopillar.com/movie marketing dash TTP, right? And you go on there,
Okay.
it'll
Yeah.
tell you all about it. And the beautiful thing is you can register for free. So I have a way for you to learn this without having to put any money in. I do have a VIP package in there that it'll tell you about, that it's super low cost, has a ton of extra value in it, but I want people to be able to choose what works for them and not be in a position where they can't get to the information and the strategy. But you get in there and
Yeah.
we talk about your message to the market. So we're going to dial in your message and make sure that you have something to say. We're going to talk about marketing to the masses, everything we've talked about on this show and getting on different people's platforms. We're going to talk about motivating these
Uh-huh.
people to move, right? And so in this, we have to create multiple offers. We have to have two strong offers. You have to have an offer to the host and you have to have an offer to the audience. Because remember, we need to give
Yeah.
value to the host and to the show, and that's priority one. And then have an offer, what I'm doing right now, to the audience, right? And
Yeah.
so that, and then also how to maintain that momentum, because it's more than just getting people aware of you and getting them into your sphere and like give, them kind of starting to engage with you. We want them to become a very happy customer, right? And we want them to
Yeah.
come out of your experience being somebody who's an advocate for your business, promoting your business. And so I get into all of that,
Right.
which is really like a foundation to business itself. It's something that I started developing when I was running a sales team, a global sales team for this post production company, and I
Oh,
had people
wow.
in North America, in China, in India, and I had to report to this hedge fund every 2 weeks on what we were doing and the revenue projections and all this stuff. And so there was this framework that I put together that was working really well. But then I ended up teaming up with Digital Marketer. I'm sure you're familiar with Digital Marketer and those guys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I teamed up with them, became a certified partner, because I found that they actually have tools and frameworks that were almost the same. And I was like, oh my God, this is
Oh,
beautiful. This is perfect. I don't have to create all this stuff. We talk about truncating time and partnering with
yeah.
people. So I partnered
Yeah.
with them. So like that, within like 15 minutes, I was able to have this. And so we'll go into all of that of having, your proper customer journey and actionable metrics that you can track so that you can build your company or adjust your company so it's successful and can start predicting sales, predicting growth, and just put you, on the fastest path possible for you in your business, right? Because we're all different.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. Well, I really appreciate it, Jeremy. This was great. And I do know that everybody will get a lot of value from this conversation and if they choose to pursue further because I
No,
mean,
thank you.
it's just like when you're a small business and you're starting out, like you need to explore every avenue. You need to be scrappy. You need to do all of these things that are kind of out of your comfort zone if you want to be successful and you want to grow. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate it, I'm really grateful for your time. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.